want to talk about something today that I believe families desperately need to hear. And I want to say it with as much compassion as I possibly can, because this is not about shaming families. This is not about making anyone feel foolish. This is not about attacking every independent caregiver. This is about telling the truth before another exhausted daughter, son, spouse, or family member gets trapped in a situation they were never warned about. Because I've seen it. I've seen how fast it happens. A loved one goes into the hospital, then maybe rehab, and then suddenly the family gets the call. They're being discharged. Just like that, everything changes. The papers are handed over. The instructions are printed. The discharge planner is talking fast. There are medications to understand, appointments to schedule, fall risks to watch for, bathing needs, meal needs, mobility needs, maybe dementia concerns, maybe wound care concerns, maybe behaviors the family has never dealt with before. And while all of that is being explained, the family is standing there trying to absorb it with a tired brain and a terrified heart. Then the system basically says, okay, good luck. That's the part that breaks my heart. Because one day, you're just a daughter. You're just a son. You're just a spouse. You're just someone who loves this person. And almost overnight, you're expected to become a care coordinator, a scheduler, a medication manager, a payroll department, a risk manager, a household employer, and sometimes, practically, a nurse. Nobody really stops and says, "Are you ready for this?" Nobody says, "Do you understand what you're taking on?" Nobody says, "Here are the risks if you hire privately." Nobody says, "Here's what can happen if you bring an unvetted person into the home." They just hand you papers. Families are already exhausted, so they do what any scared family would do. They go looking for help as fast as possible. They post in a local Facebook group, looking for a sweet lady to help mom with bathing and meals, $15 to $20 an hour. Or they call a number from a list. Or they ask a neighbor. Or they take a name from some kind of public directory or community resource. It feels simple. It feels personal. It feels less expensive. It feels like the fastest way to stop the panic. But here's what I need families to understand. Sometimes what looks like a simple solution is actually the beginning of a very dangerous trap. I call it the care trap. And the care trap opens when desperation meets a broken system. Families are not making these decisions calmly. They're not sitting around a boardroom table comparing risk, liability, insurance coverage, tax obligations, worker classification, background checks, documentation standards, backup care, and supervision. No. They're sitting at a kitchen table at midnight, crying, trying to figure out who can come Monday morning so mom doesn't fall again. That's the truth, and that's why this matters so much. Imagine a daughter. We'll call her Angela. Angela brings her mother home from rehab on a Friday afternoon. Her mother has dementia. She uses a walker. She needs help bathing. She has already fallen twice in the past month. The rehab center tells Angela she really shouldn't be left alone. Angela asks, "Who do I call?" And she gets papers, resources, names, maybe a list, maybe some agencies, maybe some private caregivers, maybe someone tells her to check online. But now it's Friday. By Sunday night, Angela is exhausted. Her mother has tried to get up alone twice. Angela has slept maybe 3 hours at a time. She has work on Monday. She has kids. She has bills. She has no idea how she is supposed to safely bathe her mother, transfer her mother, monitor her mother, work her job, run her home, and somehow stay sane. Then somebody responds to her Facebook post. The person sounds kind. They say they have years of experience. They say they love seniors. They say they can start tomorrow. And Angela says yes. Not because she verified everything. Not because she checked everything. Not because she fully understands the risk. She says yes because she is drowning. That is the part we need to stop ignoring. Families don't usually fall into this trap because they don't care. They fall into it because they care so much, and they are terrified. Now let's talk about one of the biggest illusions in this whole situation: the illusion of safety. A family gets a list of private caregivers from what feels like a trusted source. Maybe it's a senior resource, maybe it's a community organization, maybe it's a government-related entity, maybe it's some local registry. Naturally, the family thinks, well, if they gave me this list, these people must be safe. That assumption is dangerous. A name on a list is not the same thing as a licensed agency. A name on a list is not the same thing as ongoing supervision. A name on a list is not the same thing as current training. A name on a list is not the same thing as insurance. A name on a list is not the same thing as accountability. I'm going to say that again because families need to hear it. A name on a list is not a safety plan. Some lists are really just referral tools. Some are closer to bulletin boards. Some may do some level of screening. Some may do background checks. But even then, families need to ask, when was the background check done? Who did it? What kind of background check was it? Was it national? Was it state only? Does it include abuse registries? Has anything happened since then? Has anyone actually observed this person providing care? There is a world of difference between this person's name appears on a list and this person is actively employed, supervised, insured, trained, documented, and accountable within a professional care system. That difference can change everything. At CAREOSITY, we do background checks because we understand what access means. When you send someone into a vulnerable person's home, you are not just filling a shift. You are giving that person access. Access to bedrooms, bathrooms, medication cabinets, wallets, jewelry, checkbooks, family routines, medical information, private conversations, a vulnerable person's trust. And predators do not walk in wearing warning signs. They don't introduce themselves by saying, I might steal from your mother, or I might take advantage of your father, or I have a history you should know about. They come across as sweet. They come across as helpful. They say the right things. And when a family is exhausted enough, charm can start to look like safety. But charm is not vetting. Kindness is not insurance. A warm smile is not accountability. I also want to be very clear here. There are good, independent caregivers. There are wonderful, independent caregivers. There are people out there doing this work privately who truly care, who work hard, who serve with integrity, and who have beautiful hearts. This is not about painting everyone with the same brush. But the question is not, are all independent caregivers bad? Of course not. The question is, what system is in place when something goes wrong? That's the question families have to ask. Because if something goes wrong with a private caregiver, who do you call? Who investigates? Who supervises? Who replaces them? Who documents what happened? Who carries the insurance? Who handles the payroll? Who handles the taxes? Who handles the liability? Who makes sure your loved one still has care tomorrow morning if that person calls out? A professional agency is not just sending a person into a home. A legitimate agency is supposed to be carrying a whole structure of protection behind that person, and families need to understand that. Now let's talk about the money side, because this is where a lot of families get blindsided. When a family hires a private caregiver and pays them directly, they often think, we're just paying someone to help. But legally, it may not be that simple. Depending on the arrangement, that caregiver may not be an independent contractor. They may legally be considered a household employee, and that changes everything. For 2026, if a family pays a household employee $3,000 or more in cash wages during the year, federal Social Security and Medicare tax rules generally come into play. That means the family may have responsibilities they never imagined. They may need an employer identification number. They may need to track wages. They may need to handle Social Security and Medicare taxes. They may need to issue a W-2. They may need to understand unemployment tax rules. They may need to keep records. Depending on the state, there may be additional requirements. Now think about that. This family was just trying to get help for mom. They weren't trying to become an employer. They weren't trying to run payroll. They weren't trying to navigate tax law. They weren't trying to expose themselves to penalties. But that's exactly what can happen. Paying someone under the table may feel easier in the moment, but easier is not the same thing as legal. Easier is not the same thing as protected. Easier is not the same thing as safe. The cheapest option can become the most expensive decision a family ever makes. Now let's talk about liability, because this is another thing families almost never think about until it is too late. Imagine a caregiver helping your father out of the shower. The floor is wet. The bathroom is narrow. Your father is weak. The caregiver twists to keep him from falling, and she falls instead. She hurts her back. Now what? Who pays for the emergency room? Who pays for physical therapy? Who pays for lost wages? Does homeowners insurance cover it? Does the caregiver have insurance? Was there workers' compensation coverage? Was she technically your employee? Was she a contractor? Was there a written agreement? Did anybody understand any of this before care started? Most families do not ask those questions in advance because they do not even know they need to ask them. And that is the problem. They are making care decisions in crisis mode, and the system is not educating them before the crisis turns into a disaster. In Virginia, for example, domestic employment has its own rules and exceptions, and families should not just assume they are automatically protected. Businesses and agencies have different responsibilities than a private household. I'm not saying this so families panic. I'm saying this because families need to know before they hire, before they hand over a key, before they leave their loved one alone with someone they barely know, and before they find out the hard way that they have taken on a level of risk they never knowingly agreed to carry. Now, I want to talk about another phrase that needs to go away. She just needs someone to sit with her. No, she does not. She may need someone to notice that her ankles are swelling. She may need someone to recognize that her confusion is worse than yesterday. She may need someone to understand that the way she is standing means she is at risk of falling. She may need someone to notice she is not eating. She may need someone to notice pain cues she cannot explain. She may need someone to understand dementia behaviors. She may need someone to document changes. She may need someone to report concerns. She may need someone who knows when not to attempt a transfer alone. She may need someone who understands that companionship is not passive. Care is not just sitting. Care is observation. Care is judgment. Care is patience. Care is timing. Care is documentation. Care is knowing when something small is not actually small. A good caregiver does not just occupy a chair in the home. A good caregiver protects the rhythm of a vulnerable person's day. That kind of work deserves respect, but it also deserves standards. Now, I want to speak directly to families for a moment. If you are looking for help for someone you love, please do not let panic make the decision for you. Ask questions. Ask hard questions. Ask uncomfortable questions. You are not being rude. You are being responsible. Ask if the caregiver has had a current background check. Ask who performed it. Ask if they carry liability insurance. Ask if they are bonded. Ask if they have training. Ask if they understand fall prevention. Ask if they have dementia care experience. Ask what happens if they cannot show up. Ask who replaces them. Ask who supervises them. Ask who pays taxes. Ask who is liable if they get hurt. Ask what documentation is kept. Ask what happens if money goes missing. Ask what happens if medication goes missing. Ask what happens if your loved one reports something concerning. Ask what boundaries are in place. This is not about being difficult. This is about protecting someone you love. And if someone gets offended because you are asking reasonable safety questions, that tells you something too. Now, I want to speak to independent caregivers. And again, I say this with respect for the ones who are truly doing this work with integrity. If you want to work independently, then operate professionally. Carry liability insurance. Keep your background checks current. Use written agreements. Know your scope. Do not present yourself as a nurse if you are not one. Do not take on care needs you are not trained to handle. Do not accept cash under the table and call that a business. Do not borrow money from clients. Do not blur boundaries. Do not create emotional dependency and then use that dependency as leverage. If you are going to build an independent care practice, build it honorably, build it legally, build it with accountability. Having a good heart is beautiful, but a good heart still needs structure. A good heart still needs boundaries. A good heart still needs insurance. A good heart still needs professionalism. And to professional home care agencies, I want to say this too. We cannot just sit back and watch families fall into this trap. We cannot only show up after something has gone wrong. We have to educate before the crisis. We need to be in rehab centers. We need to be in churches. We need to be in senior centers. We need to be in caregiver support groups. We need to be in the community, telling families the truth, not as a scare tactic, not as a sales pitch, as a responsibility. Families do not need more fear. They already have fear. What they need is clarity. They need someone to say, here is what you are actually taking on. They need someone to say, here is what can go wrong. They need someone to say, here is how to protect your loved one. They need someone to say, here is the difference between hiring help and building a care system. Because that is the real issue. Families think they are hiring help, but in many cases, what they actually need is a care system. They need backup. They need vetting. They need oversight. They need training. They need communication. They need documentation. They need someone answering the phone when the schedule falls apart. They need someone who understands that this is not just about filling hours. This is about protecting a life. So, if you are listening to this and you are tired, scared, overwhelmed, and trying to figure out what to do next for someone you love, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not failing. You are not weak because you need help. You are not selfish because you cannot do everything by yourself. You are not a bad daughter. You are not a bad son. You are not a bad spouse. You are a human being who has been handed too much, too fast, with too little guidance. You deserve support. Your loved one deserves safe care. And you deserve to be family again. That is one of the things I believe most deeply. Families should not have to become exhausted managers of a crisis just to prove they love someone. Love should not require you to ignore your own limits. Love should not require you to become an employer overnight without understanding what that means. Love should not require you to gamble with safety because the system failed to explain your options. There is a better way. When you partner with a legitimate professional home care agency, you are not just paying for a caregiver. You are paying for protection. You are paying for screening. You are paying for accountability. You are paying for supervision. You are paying for backup. You are paying for payroll compliance. You are paying for insurance. You are paying for a system that stands between your family and the chaos And that matters because your loved one does not only need care, they need you. They need your presence. They need your voice. They need your hand. They need your love. They do not need you buried under payroll forms, tax questions, liability concerns, background checks, and scheduling panic. They need you beside them, and you deserve that too. So let's raise the standard. Let's educate families before desperation makes the decision. Let's stop pretending that every sweet lady from Facebook is automatically safe. Let's stop handing families lists without making sure they understand what those lists do and do not mean. Let's stop calling care just sitting. Let's stop leaving families to figure out employer law, liability, and risk in the middle of emotional crisis. And let's start telling the truth, not to scare people, but to protect them. Because vulnerable seniors deserve more than panic-based care. Families deserve more than a broken system and a stack of discharge papers. The people doing this work the right way deserve to be recognized for the protection, professionalism, and dignity they bring into the home. That is how we escape the care trap. We tell the truth. We raise the standard. And we make sure families know what they were never told before hiring private home care.
This is CareCast. Exploring the heart of care.